times, some of which are useful all the time, if that makes sense. And hopefully that makes sense. We'll come back to it. So we started this journey. With measures of center. And our favorite there was the average X bar. Our favorite there was the average X bar. Who did we learn very quickly we need to tag along with the average?
Standard deviation.
Thank you. The standard deviation. The standard deviation. Oh, and remind me to stop about 5 minutes early to return quizzes to you guys. I have stuff to return. I forgot to do it at a break. My apologies. Stop me at 5 till. Yes? Thank you. Measuring variation. And our favorite there was little s. And the reason we like little s is because little s is inherently tied to little x bar. Yes, fantastic, fantastic. Excellent. Now, that's great until you deal with like these skewed populations that might not lend themselves to talking about these. We just saw one of those with the Facebook data, Facebook Friends data. So what I want to start talking about today is the idea that we just introduced up here with Max. And what that is technically called in the statistical world is measuring what's called relative position. Measuring relative position. Now, what is that? Well, the reason it's different, I like to think of these guys as absolute position. You have a sample, and that sample has one average, and that sample has one standard deviation around that average. Boom, absolute. Relative position, when you talk about things being relative to one another, it means you have a point, but you're comparing it to other points. In other words, the relative position measure, depending on what data point you're looking at, is going to be different. So you can say the average distance from x bar is s. That's a fixed quantity that will never ever change. But when you talk about Max in the 80th percentile, if you compare Max to his little friend Hagen, who's a little tiny little guy, Hagen's going to have his own relative position number that's attached to him. So what you get with relative position is you tie in the idea of percentile or percentages as opposed to just an absolute quantity on a curve. And that's why I kind of like this. One way to look at this is simply by the percentile. This is one way, but it is by no means the only way. So what I want to do right now is I want to collect some more data for us to play with together. Do you guys have your data sheets with you? If you need a copy of the data sheet, I have extra copies if you need them, but I have them around if you need them. They printed, unfortunately, two-sided, so grab those right there. There you go, Eric. Anybody else need the data sheets? Let's hand them over. One hand. Make sure you grab 2 copies. Top page and next page down. Yes. We're going to practice percentile and also deal with some other fun stuff. Yeah, that's good. What I want you to do right now, look at the very bottom of the first page. You've got a map of the United States. I want you to take a few moments right now and figure out how many states you've visited. Let's define a visit. Let's define a visit. If you've set foot in a state, call it visiting that state. If you've driven through a state, call that visiting the state. Because generally, if you drive through a state, you generally have to stop to pee or get gas or something.
Would be step out of the airport.
Yeah. Call that a visit. Let's say if you or anything you're in touches the ground of the state, it's a visit. How's that sound? That's an easy definition, yes? If you or any vehicle you are in touches the ground of a state, call it a visit of that state, yes?
If you're in an airplane?
If you're on the ground in an airplane, call it good. Yes. Not if you fly over a state, though. Don't count that. That doesn't really count as a visit. That counts as airspace. Take a few moments. Give me some numbers. Yes.